The day had been draining, and Jake finally sank into the couch, craving a quiet evening. From the kitchen, his wife, Samantha, hummed softly as she prepared dinner. Everything felt normal, until his phone rang. His boss, Mr. Carter. At this hour? That was unusual. Jake hesitated before answering, his mind racing through possibilities. Had he missed a deadline? Made an error in a report? Suppressing a wave of unease, he picked up the call. "Jake, I need you in my office. Now." No explanation. No pleasantries. Just a direct order. The line went dead before he could even ask why. He stared at his phone, confused. Something about this felt wrong. Turning to Samantha, he said, "That was Carter. He wants to see me. Says it's urgent." For the briefest moment, her grip on the spoon tightened, but her voice remained neutral. "At this hour? I know, weird, right?" She finally turned to face him, her expression carefully guarded. "You should go." That was it. No concern, no questions, just a simple instruction. It unsettled him. Samantha was never one to ignore strange situations. She was always the first to dig deeper, to demand details. But now, she seemed almost eager for him to leave. Despite the nagging feeling in his gut, Jake grabbed his keys and headed out. He wanted to chalk it up to nothing, but something told him this wasn't just about work. The drive felt longer than usual. His mind cycled through every possible scenario. Was it a promotion? A firing? Had someone lodged a complaint against him? His fingers tightened around the steering wheel. When he arrived, the office building was nearly empty. Only a few lights flickered on the upper floors. He took the elevator up, his pulse quickening with every chime. As he stepped into Mr. Carter's office, he was met with an expression he didn't recognize: pity. Jake's stomach twisted. Whatever this was, it wasn't good. He sat down, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Mr. Carter wasted no time. "You need to know something about your wife." The words landed like a punch. Jake blinked, sure he had misheard. Mr. Carter exhaled and slid a phone across the desk. "See for yourself." Jake hesitated before picking it up. The screen was filled with messages, intimate, explicit messages. His breath caught as he read them. Samantha's name, her words, her pictures, and the person on the other end? Mr. Carter. His grip on the phone tightened. This isn't real. But it was. A cold weight settled in his gut. The messages stretched back for months. Not just casual flirting, but something deeper, something ongoing. This wasn't a mistake. It was calculated. He scrolled, his pulse hammering, his vision blurring. Every word, every image meant only for him, was now shared with another man, his boss. Setting the phone down, he forced his hands to remain steady, though everything inside him felt like it was caving in. "Why are you showing me this?" His voice was barely above a whisper. Mr. Carter leaned back, unreadable. "Because I ended it. And I figured you deserved to know before you spent another day living a lie." Jake's jaw tightened. "You ended it?" "Yes." She wanted more. "I wasn't willing to risk my position for it." A hollow laugh escaped Jake's throat. "So what is this? A confession? A favor?" Mr. Carter didn't blink. "Consider it whatever you want. But now you know." Jake shot to his feet, his head throbbing, his body brimming with something volatile. Anger, betrayal, disbelief. "You slept with my wife, and now you're giving me closure?" "I'm giving you the truth." Jake searched the man's face, looking for something: remorse, guilt, shame. But there was nothing. Just cold, hard facts laid out like a business deal. And just like that, his world shattered. Jake turned without another word and walked out, his world fracturing with every step. The drive home was a blur. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His mind was stuck on an endless loop. Every text, every image, every lie. His marriage hadn't just fallen apart. It had been a performance from the start, and he had been the fool in the front row. By the time he pulled into the driveway, his anger was barely contained. He slammed the car door shut and stormed inside. Samantha was on the couch, phone in hand. She looked up, her eyes widening at the expression on his face. "You knew," he said, his voice dangerously calm. Her fingers tightened around her phone. Knew what? He pulled out his own phone, tapped the screen, and set it on the table between them. The messages glowed back at her, undeniable. The color drained from her face. Don't lie. His voice was sharp, almost unrecognizable. Not now. She swallowed hard, her hands trembling. Jake, How long? His tone was eerily steady. Tears welled in her eyes, but he wasn't interested in her tears. He wanted answers. Months, she whispered. I didn't mean for it to happen. He let out a hollow laugh. You didn't mean for it to happen? You sent pictures. You met him. He stopped, his jaw clenching so tightly it ached. Did you ever even love me? Tears slipped down her cheeks. Of course I did. Loved, he corrected. Past tense. Her silence was answer enough. Jake exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Was it worth it? She broke down then, sobbing, reaching for him. Don't. He stepped back. Jake, I made a mistake. I was lonely. Stop. His voice was hollow. Just stop. She opened her mouth, but he was already walking away, grabbing his keys. He needed to get out before the weight of it crushed him completely. The night air was cold, but he barely felt it. He drove with no destination, just endless miles of road stretching ahead. His mind was a battlefield. Anger clashed with heartbreak. Memories tangled with betrayal. Every laugh, every kiss, every promise she had made, all of it was tainted now. At some point, he pulled into an empty parking lot near the lake. Their lake, the place where they used to sit for hours, dreaming about the future. He stared at the dark water, the silence pressing down on him. He wanted to scream. He wanted to ask her why. He wanted to turn back time to a version of his life where none of this had happened. But that wasn't possible. The life he thought he had was gone. A part of him wanted to believe this could be fixed, that love could outweigh betrayal. But the messages had been too raw, too real. This hadn't been a single mistake. It had been a choice. Over and over again, she had chosen someone else. Forgiveness was an option. Neither was staying. After what felt like hours, he turned the car around and drove home. Not because he wanted to, but because he had to face what came next. When he walked through the door, Samantha was still there, sitting where he had left her, tear streak broken. She looked up hopefully. He didn't stop. Moving past her, he walked into the bedroom and grabbed a bag. She rushed in behind him. Jake, please. I'm done, he said simply, stuffing clothes into the bag. I don't care why you did it. I don't care what you want now. I'm done. She reached for him, but he pulled away. The woman standing in front of him wasn't the person he had married. Or maybe she was, and he had just never seen it before. He zipped the bag, slung it over his shoulder, and walked to the door. She followed, crying, pleading, but he didn't turn back. With one hand on the doorknob, he hesitated for just a second. Then he exhaled and stepped out, closing the door behind him.